My name is Roger Sherman, if I haven't told everybody yet. Pitmaster and owner of the District Pit Barbecue Catering Company in DC. We come out here to Pearman relatively frequently. If you're on the mailing list, what we usually do here is a barbecue and wine pairing up at the farm store, which is about 50 meters from here. That's what we do most of the time, but we'll come down here and we'll vend and we'll do some other stuff sometimes on holiday weekends, Memorial Day and stuff like that. All right, again, sorry about the smoke, but we'll get it out of here. So we're gonna do a T-bone for you today. T-bone is two different steaks for you who don't know. One side of it is a New York strip, the other side is the filet mignon. I like to cook ribeyes typically. I usually like to cook steaks about 2 inches thick. But today we're going to do a steak that's a little, probably more than a ½ inch, and it's a New York strip. Seasoning a steak is very important. Most of the time, all you need is 3 seasonings. You need salt, you need pepper, and you need garlic. If you want to add red pepper flake to that, you can as well. If you do salt and pepper, it's called a Dalmatian rub because it's black and white. And if you put red pepper with it, or red pepper flake, it's then called a newspaper rub because it's black, white, and red all over. So we're going to do a little bit of simple seasoning for you. So this is just a store-bought seasoning. It's got all the things that I just said into you, and you will season your steak pretty generously. Most of the time when you thaw a steak out, it's got enough moisture on it where you don't have to add anything additional to it in order for you to get to adhere to the meat. Not a problem there, but then you'll just flip it over and you'll season the other side. Most of the time I like to put the seasoning in my hand, and then you'll season it from 6 to 8 inches up. That way it seasons fairly evenly across the steak. And again, you can be pretty generous on this because you'll actually lose some of it during the course of the time that you are on the grill. It'll fall right through the grill. So I like to cook most of the time with charcoal. A lot of the times I'll actually cook my steaks over charcoal and wood. Today we're just using charcoal because it was easier to do. What you want to do is get your coals nice and white. Steak is about time. So most of the time I'm cooking a steak that's somewhere between 1.5 inches to 2 inches thick. Today we're a little bit somewhere around that 1.5 inch. I like to cook my steaks to medium rare. You're gonna be somewhere between 122 and 125 degrees when you pull it, and then what you'll do is you'll pull it off and you'll rest it, and after that it'll continue to cook a little bit. It'll get to that 130 degree range, and after that, that's where you kind of want it to be. Then you'll let it rest and you'll cut it up and you'll have a good steak. What I'm gonna do is gonna be very simple. I'm gonna go by time. I'm gonna cook these steaks 5 minutes per side, and then after the second 5-minute time period, I'm going to pull it off to one side of the grill, let it continue to sit for a little bit on the grill, and then it'll get to the temperature. At that point in time, you would typically check it with a thermometer and make sure that it's okay. So now that we've seasoned our steak, we're going to do the very simple part of simply sitting it on top of the coals. And you should hear some sizzle. If you don't hear any sizzle, you didn't do the right job. If you don't hear the sizzle, pretend that you did. Everybody got it. Everybody figured that out. Like, that's what I need. So you'll open up all of your grates on top of this. Like I said, I've got a grate here. You'll make sure that's completely open. And we'll start it going 5 minutes on this side, and then we'll use the tongs to flip it over. Now, if you're cooking a steak for your friends at your home at this point, this is where you start talking, start drinking, start doing the things that you're going to do here while we're sitting here. So before I flip it, or while I'm getting ready to flip it, any barbecue or grilling questions you guys have, I'm willing to answer them. Otherwise, I'll just sit here and tell barbecue stories. So any questions off the top of anybody's head?
How would you do this with gas?
So the cooking technique, if you're cooking over gas, would be exactly the same. You're going to get the fire super hot. I like to cook over a grill my steaks somewhere between 450 500 degrees. It's easy to see that on a gas grill, but the process is going to be exactly the same. It's going to taste a little different. When you're cooking over charcoal, you'll get that charcoal taste in the meat. When you're cooking over gas, you don't get the gas grill taste over it, but you'll get the fire taste over it. So you'll know that you're cooking over an open flame, but it'll be a little bit different taste with the charcoal. The reason why I like to cook with charcoal is because, one, there's more science involved with it, and I feel like I'm relatively intelligent. That may or may not be the case. But you have to do certain things to make sure that you can keep the fire up to the right temperature, and you have to make sure that you're putting yourself in a position to cook the steak appropriately. When you're cooking with gas, you can just kind of turn it on. It kind of takes care of itself, and there's not a lot to it. All right, so we're 5 minutes deep. I'm going to flip it over. So we'll go ahead and we're going to flip this right over. You can see that's got some good color on it. I feel pretty good about what that's looking like. So I'm going to get that a little bit off of the main flame there and just get it over top of that. I'm only going to have to open it one more time. After we pull the steak off, we're not going to cut right into it. So the heat from the grill is pulling all of the moisture out of the steak, but not completely and totally. So when you get done grilling the steak, you want to give it a little bit of time for the for the moisture to reinfuse itself and make its way back toward the center of the meat. So what you'll do is you'll pull the steak off. We're going to put it on top of a plastic cutting board here, and we'll tint it with aluminum foil and put something on over top of it to hide the foil. We won't wrap it completely because then the steak will steam, and we don't want the steak to steam. We just want it to rest. And then after that, the juices will make its way back into the center of the steak. We'll cut the steak up, and then you'll serve it to your friends. It's got the color that I want on it. We'll pull it around a little bit. Like I said, we get a little bit more sizzle. It looks the way I want it to look. And without screwing up Mr. Perriman's nice concrete patio here, we're just gonna pull this off. Tenting, super important. We want to tent this. I'm gonna let that burn out. So then we'll take a piece of foil, and you're not gonna wrap it because if you wrap it up completely, it'll steam, and that's not what you want. We're just gonna take a couple of pieces of foil. We're gonna put it on top like this. I'm just gonna lay the tongs over it so that it'll continue to rest. Normally we would let this rest for 4 to 5 minutes. I'm gonna let it rest for about 2. That way we can cut it up and I can get out of you guys' face so you can keep drinking away. This guy gets it because he's gonna be the first.
I wanted to smell a little more.
He positioned himself. The next thing you gotta be, when you're doing this for your friends, the important thing for you to do is cut your steak up in an impressive manner with a comically large knife. It is important that the knife be as comically large as possible. So we'll do the tenting. That lets the moisture work its way back into the steak. And then when the steak is as moist as it could possibly be, we'll cut it up. All right, folks, come on over and we're gonna cut up this steak. So because it's a New York strip, there's a bone. I'm sorry, it's a T-bone. There's a bone in it in the middle. So what you'll do is you'll take the steak and you just kind of hold it here like this. And you can just cut it off the bone that way. And then the filet mignon on the other side, you just cut it off this way. You know, I like to gnaw on the bones. You can pass it to the dog if you want to. There. And you'll just go across the grain so you get the juiciest bites that you can get off of it. And that's your steak demo, folks. If you would like a piece, come get one. I would rather not take any of that back over to the pit with me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Take it, my man. The Petite Verdot, if you have it. The Cab Franc, if you have that.